Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition, which includes the Tool Times tips item I couldn't get in last time, having a look at the router attachment for the Dremel, the Scenic work to take the low relief terraced houses that I built last time round and put them on the layout, and also to have a look at the workers' cottages that I've built as well, and two more channels for you to have a think about following that model principally in N gauge, but are fabulous modelers, both of them. So let's get on with taking a look at the router attachment for the Dremel. Welcome to Tool Time Tips, in what will be the last, I think, in the current series, though I may do occasional ones if I acquire any new tool, specifically for scratch building, although this item in front of me was not intended specifically for scratch building. It is a router and a router attachment for the Dremel, which I used to cut the groove into which the inspection pit for the engine shed up at High Elven was inserted. And I have to say, I wish I had had this piece of kit when I was cutting the hole for the turntable, because it is also capable of cutting a circle, as I should explain. I'm not a real expert on routers and different router bits, but the basic idea, let me move the bits out of the way, I'll come back to those. The basic idea is that the Dremel obviously sits in here with the bit below it. This presses down and you've got a depth gauge here so that you can control the extent, the maximum depth that you're cutting at. This here is to run along the side of your piece of wood so that you can make sure that your cut is both straight and parallel with the edge, if that's what you're trying to do. I wasn't able to use this because the angle at which the inspection pit needed to be cut was not parallel to either side, and it was deeper into the board than the maximum depth of this guide. But plainly, that's an extremely useful thing to have. This here, which uses the same metal guides, is the thing that's used for doing circles by the simple expedient of sticking a nail through the middle here into the center of the circle that you want to cut, setting the radius using these bars from the bit to the center, and then essentially just pivoting around the center of this piece here, and lo, you have cut a hole. Now plainly, this isn't a big heavy duty thing, but nonetheless, through the 6mm ply that I was using, I think this would have made a fairly easy job of it, and a damn sight easier. Those of you who've been here all the while will remember that I cut the hole out and then had to rasp the hole to make it clean. And in so doing, because I'd been leaning over, I managed to pull my back. So this would have been a great advance. I found this really easy to use, especially using it for the first time freehand. The depth gauge works really well. I was only working with a 6mm piece of board that I was going through, MDF that I was going through, and I needed to drop it down only by about 3 or 4mm, and it did a beautiful job. Very easy to use. This is currently on sale on Amazon for £27.40, and I'll put a link in the description below so that you can get one if you think you want to get one. I can see this having lots of uses. If and when I build a new layout, there is lots of things that I could have used this on when I was constructing elements of the build. The only other thing to mention is the bits. Dremel do their own set of bits, which is in a lovely wooden box, and it's 7 pieces, and that is about 30 odd pounds. This was being advertised alongside the router and is 10 pieces for £9. Now, it is possible that these may be really rubbish, and I will rue having them, but getting the set for £9 seemed a daft thing not to do. And anyway, the router does not come with any bits, so you've got to buy some. I'll put up just about here a picture showing what the individual router bits do. because this thing is rather clever. It doesn't just cut slots, which is what I was using it to do. As you'll see from the image that's up there, it can cut semicircular holes, V-shapes. The core box bits you see there, I think that's essentially cutting the kind of keyhole that you see often on the back of clocks or plug blocks, so that you can put a screw attached through a big hole and then drop it down into a groove. I think that's what it's essentially doing. And as you see, it can cut rebates and chamfers of various kinds. So it's an extremely versatile tool, and I think well worth the $27.40 that I spent on it. So that it brings tool time tips to an end on the things that I use for scratch building. But as I say, it's possible if I come across other tools or I think of something else that a version of tool time tips might pop up in future editions. If there's anything that you particularly want me to cover, then please do say, and I'm more than happy to do that, because after all, the whole of Tool Time Tips was inspired by someone asking me to show the tools that I use for scratch building. Well, it's good to be back and working on the layout, having spent a bit of time sat at my desk making these buildings. These are the ones that I showed you last time round, which I kept referring to as workers' cottages. They're not, they're terraced houses. These are workers' cottages. That's again a Petite Properties kit, made in much the same way as for this. I think they are really good little kits. These ones, if I show you at the bottom, have room for 4 lights if you need to light them up that much. What I've got in the centre there is a scale model scenery gate, because these are going to go together with the gate in between them to suggest that that's a common alleyway taking you into some common greens at the back. These are going to sit on this platform which I've constructed. Let me just push these down. And there's nothing particularly special about this. This is just black card, probably I would guess 1mm card, to which I've put some 3mm strip styrene, just square strip styrene, and then braced it with some I-beams in the centre. The white daubs on the top were to show me where the holes were under each of the buildings, and I've drilled through some of them because I'm not going to have all the lights, all the rooms lit up. I think that would be too much. So I've already decided how many of the lights, how many of the houses will be lit, and the pattern. So that should look quite good. And then this will sit along here, and just about where the pointer is now, if I get myself out the way, is the hole through which all the wires will come. The reason for the ramp for the platform is twofold. One, I think it will add a bit of scenic interest, because across the front of the platform is going to be a raised wall with some cast iron fencing on top of it. And that will provide a nice break between the houses and the road. But also, if because I need to get the wires out from the side here, rather than bringing them up from the board, I just need a little bit of space for the very thin wires of the little nano lights that are going to be lighting up these buildings. So this will disguise the fact that the wires are coming up underneath, and it just gives me enough room to move the wires about underneath the platform. What I will then do is disguise the ends with other scenic material. But if I need to bring this board off, it will be possible and easy to lift this whole thing up and out the way, because I've got enough play on the wires to be able to move the board out the way in the unlikely event that I'll need to take it off the layout. So that's what that's there for to do. To give you an idea roughly how things will stand, if I put that into its position there, and that there, and then these two go on this end. Now there's a gap in between them at the moment, because I'm hoping I've got 2 low relief shop fronts on order from in the Greenwood laser, because I think that will help. That's more of a brick terrace type thing, but I think that will help break up that it's too samey along this wall. But if they go as I hope they will and go into that space, I think that will give us a couple of shop fronts and those houses along that wall, which should look quite good. And then I can get the road in and everything else that needs to be done. So what I'm going to do now is go off and carry on working on creating this, putting some paving in, building the wall around the edge of this, including some stairs, which I have put somewhere and I can't find them, but I will show you next time round. What I'm going to have in a couple of places is some steps that allow you to walk down here onto the road itself. Borrowed actually from an arrangement at South Queensferry, which is near both the Forth Railway Bridge and the first road bridge that crossed the Forth at that point. And that's partly where the idea of this comes from an area by the bridge there. So I'll get on and do that work, and I'll come back probably in a day or so because I need the shop fronts to arrive and show you how I've got on. So I'll speak to you again in a day or two. Hello and welcome to Two to Watch, my regular series in which I showcase two of the channels to which I subscribe and from which I get lots of enjoyment watching my fellow YouTubers, and which I think you might enjoy watching as well. Now, as you know, I use a randomometer to make the choices from the list of about 30 channels that I follow, and this time the randomometer has chosen two really good channels. The first of which is Ewan Chalmers' channel, The Growler Blackwood N-Gauge Layout. Ewan and I have actually met. As you would expect with him living in the west of Scotland and me in the east, we chose a good central place to meet, Birmingham, at the Whalley exhibition last year. I've been following his channel for a good while and really have enjoyed watching the development of his layout. The thing that first attracted me to the layout was the quality of the scenic work, as I'm sure you will agree once you go and have a look at some of his past videos. He's been making changes to his layout in various ways over the time I have been watching. As he says, a layout is never really finished, and I think he always will be amending and making changes to it. You will join his channel, when you subscribe, as I'm sure you will, at a really interesting time, because he's been busy over the summer preparing the foundations to erect a shed. He will be moving his layout from the room in his house to the shed, and we will be following him on the journey. He's obviously not a shirker for work, because he's moved several tons of earth and hardcore to create the space and foundation for the shed. The layout itself is modern image principally. It covers a wide time period, nonetheless with a pretty eclectic mix of traction from BR Blue to some of the latest locomotives and units. Some of the camera angles provide superb viewing. He rebuilt the lines through Blackwood Station recently, putting in super elevation. When the trains, in particular the HSTs, come barrelling through there, they really do look good as they travel through the cant on the curves. And I do urge you to go across, and if you're not already a subscriber, to subscribe. The second channel today is Bognor Regis Chris's N-Gauge. This is a fairly new channel, and he's going to be building his layout up in his loft, which he says is about 38 foot by 7 foot 8 inches. It's going to be DCC operated with a twin double loop around the loft with a large terminus which will be modelled on his local railway station, Bognor Regis. He hopes to model it for around 1948, possibly a few years either way, but definitely post 1938. Chris has shown us a little bit of the work in his loft, but the main thing that he's been doing is starting work on scratch building a replica of the engine shed that was at Bognor Regis. Now, Chris is new to N-Gauge, and I think he's done a fantastic job with the very first scratch build. Replicating a building is no easy task, and he has produced a very good reproduction of the original. I'm really looking forward to seeing Chris develop his skills in N-Gauge and the kind of things he's going to be able to achieve. The start he has made has been absolutely brilliant, and there's nothing better than watching a layout grow from the track plan into a full layout, so I do urge you to go across, get in early, have a look, and subscribe. Chris sets high standards for himself, and that's not a bad thing when you're striving to achieve high quality work. This has all the hallmarks of becoming a fabulous layout based around that area of Sussex just after the war. So go and have a look, and subscribe of course, and have a look at some of the quality of the scratch building that he's already starting to turn out. So that's it for 2 to watch for this episode. Can I just before I finish say thank you to everybody that responded to my last video about how many channels I should mention in each 2 to watch segment. The overwhelming view was 2 was just right. So I'm going to keep it at 2. It's not going to become 4 to follow or 3 to see. And with that, that brings us to the end of 2 to watch for this episode. I thought I'd bring you up to date with where I've got to on doing the work on here, largely because some things that I need to complete it haven't arrived yet, and I don't think they will in time for me to do it for this video. But also just to show you things in their developing state rather than in their finished state. In the last video I mentioned that I'd built these little steps but I couldn't find them, and they're now not coming off. There we go. Just very quickly bring it into focus on my thumb. There we go. This is just 2mm wide and 0.75mm wide strip styrene, which I think, I'm trying to remember, is that's 1mm thick. And by using various combinations of the 2mm and the 0.75, I've been able to construct those stairs. And I made these of one length, which I then cut down to provide the 2 sets of steps, which is all I'm going to have, one here and the other one, if I put you back in focus for the buildings, got it, over there. For the walling, I'd originally intended to put a quite wide wall in front of these buildings along the edge here, on which would sit capping stones, and on top of that would be iron railings. But I wasn't sure that was exactly what I wanted, and in the end I've gone for a slightly different approach. This here is the iron railings that I'm using, which is from a PD kit. They've not been, let me just do this, come on, you know you want to. I say, we're being really awkward today, aren't we? There we go. Which is very good. It's a good kit. In fact, these form the railings at the front of the vicar's house. But I wanted the impression that these were set down in the capping stones, which of course, as iron railings, they would be. And the only way I could think to do that, if you see these are indeed set down, is to create it from essentially 3 pieces of plastic. And what I have on the bottom is, this is Slater's evergreen sheet styrene, which I think is 0.5mm thick, I think, if I remember rightly. And then on top of that, I put some strip styrene, used engineer's square to make sure the strip styrene was absolutely flush with the edge of the card, the bigger sheet, and then glued that with plastic weld. Butted the fencing up against it to enable me to position the second strip on the back, and glue it slowly, small lengths by bit, to create essentially the channel into which I could then set this and glue that in with super glue. And I'll pop up here an image which shows one of the completed parts. Once I had everything stuck down, I could then go along and cut along the edge of this strip, or this strip, whichever one was on the inside, to give me my eventual piece of fencing. What I'm going to do then is, using some Slater's card, which I happen to have in my box, which is rather handy. And again, oh, come on, stop being a pain. I don't know what's going on with the focus today. It's really having fun with it. Anyway, this is very similar in design. It really doesn't want to go into focus. Okay, fair enough. I won't beat you. I'll beat you later. To the slate at the front here. So once that's finished, that will go onto the front of the wall, and it's just the right width. And then this will sit just slightly over to mask the top of the card and to give me a neat finish, as like capping stones would obviously do on the top of a wall, and that should look quite good. So I think that pretty much completes everything. I'm waiting for some more of the fencing so I can complete the L shapes that will go around the back of the wall there. I'm waiting for the 2 in the Greenwood shop fronts to complete the terrace. You'll see, which I think I've shown you before, the Scenes low relief public lavatory entrance, which I think can be lit. I don't know if you can see that, but you can. That is a light there. Whether I will light it, I don't know. Maybe I will, which will go on the end. And then on the outer sides of these, there will be areas of bushes and trees. And obviously something that leads you up onto this terrace, probably a pathway, walking up a slight incline rather than more steps. So, as I said, I think that just about completes the video for this episode. I'll be able to do more on this once the things come, and you'll see that in the next episode. If you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. That's always really helpful. And of course, please do give me your comments, because I absolutely do enjoy responding to people's comments and to the ideas that it gives me and the thought that it makes me go through. If you haven't subscribed, and I'm very pleased to see that I've gone over 2,000 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing. When I started the channel, I couldn't imagine of getting as many as 2,000. But if you haven't subscribed, please do. Hit the bell notification and choose all notifications on the side. One thing just to mention, as some of you may have discovered, YouTube is no longer sending out emails to tell you that people have uploaded things. They discovered that very few of their emails were opened. I'm not sure that means they weren't read because of the way that some email programs work, but that they weren't being, and indeed a lot of their people that watch videos are watching them on phone or on tablet. So the only way now that you can be informed in advance is to enable notifications on either your phone or your tablet. So with that, I think that really is everything now. Until I speak to you again in about a fortnight's time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.